Left Field Investors is a community dedicated to limited partner investors who are interested in building wealth through real estate investing. The community is focused on education, networking, and engagement with quality operators and partners. We provide tools, webinars, and a forum where members can discuss everything related to real estate investing, including deals, operators, investment strategies, and much more. Coming soon, we're adding a new tool, sponsor reviews. This will be a place where our members can rate and review operating partners to further help each other in our investment journeys. Check us out at leftfieldinvestors.com.
I believe in passive investing, but I don't believe it's a passive path to get there. Because if we skip the steps of understanding, money will pass us by.
Hello, Left Fielders. Welcome to the Passive Investing from Left Field podcast. Our community is focused on networking and education to help people invest passively and think differently. Let's go.
This is Paul Shannon from Red Hawk Real Estate, and you're listening to the Passive Investing from Left Field podcast.
I'm really excited today to have Garrett Gunderson with us. He is the author of 10 books, including Sacred Cows and his latest, Money Unmasked. Garrett is a speaker who uses entertainment to educate and is also a stand-up comedian with his own comedy special, The American Ream, which breaks down all the myths about money. Garrett, welcome to Passive Investing from Left Field.
Jim, thanks for having me, man.
Really excited about this conversation. The way we like to start is just to kind of get your journey. How did you get to where you are, where you're talking passive income, real estate, you're a comedian? Can you just kind of give us the information there?
Yeah, so when I was 15, I started my first business, and it was just washing and detailing cars. And then I won like Rural Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Then I won the Entrepreneur of the Year for the governor for the state of Utah, and it came with $5,000. And I was like, ooh, I should invest this, right? I want to get wealthy. And I thought $5,000 was a ton of money. And to a 17-year-old back in 1995, that was a decent amount of money. And, that led me down this track of just asking tons of questions and learning a lot of things. And then, everyone I talked to at first was, put it in a CD or put it in a mutual fund. And that didn't really resonate. So I just decided while I was still in college, for the remaining of my college years, once a month, I would fly somewhere to interview someone that was doing really well, whether they were a wealth advisor or whether they were wealthy because they started a business, and just start to figure out what are the commonalities, what's going on. What I narrowed it down to was really 4 things. Number one, they were really good at plugging financial leaks, which real estate is one of the best assets to do that, because there's massive tax advantages. If you do enough real estate, you can be a real estate professional from a tax perspective, or, inside of syndications, there could be benefits. So it was like just being more efficient with money instead of budgeting. The second one was real estate was a huge part of so many of the wealthy people's portfolio. Businesses was the other part, and intellectual property. So I stopped seeing investments as like funds and started seeing it as efficiency, real estate, IP, and business. And that really guided my career. Early on, I did quite a bit of real estate, even developed a little bit. Like, I bought out a piece of land and built a fourplex on it when it was in bankruptcy, and cash flowed out a little bit. I bought my first property when I was 19 years old going to school, got a champ loan for the down payment. My mom co-signed, and, bought that for $96,000, sold it for $179,000. A couple of years after I graduated, learned what it was like to be a landlord and didn't like that part. So that got me pretty interested in property managers or other things like that. So I think at the height of my real estate life, I had like 109 doors. The thing was, a lot of them were all over the place. And that doesn't include like the REOs I did during like the 2008 crisis, because, those were just like buy and turn around and sell after fixing them up a little bit. It's been a mixed bag for me because, some real estate, I just got really lucky and thought I was super skilled. And then that got me to be a little bit over leveraged when 2008 hit. And that's why I had to kind of get into the REO game to try to make up for some of the losses I was taking by being over leveraged on luxury properties that I was trying to, rent out. So yeah, it's been a wild ride and wild journey, but I got in the world of finance in 1998. And really, as a person that wasn't just doing assets under management, but instead looking at how people get their financial house in order, do real due diligence, mitigate their risk, improve cash flow. And that's the thing I'm fascinated with or obsessed with in the world of money, is creating cash flow. Because as you know, so much of the retirement planning community is all about accumulation and neglecting cash flow, which is strange because then they're telling people to retire. And now they've got to create cash flow with an asset that never did for the previous decades. And so they're ill prepared and they're subject to the risk of a volatile market, interest rate fluctuations, tax increases, or just inflation, damaging people that are retired today. So my goal became, how do you create economic independence and what assets are going to be the fuel and engine to create that cash flow?
That's awesome. And, I'm going to dig into the cash flow thing because that is central to, what we do at Left Field Investors and also central to how I think about things now. But I really want to understand, how did you as a teenager decide, hey, I'm going to fly places and interview people? And I mean, people, I wouldn't do that now. I mean, I'd try to, but I mean, how do you get people to say yes? How do you pick the people? But really, how do you get into the mindset of, I'm going to do things completely differently? Because the whole world is telling you, don't do this, put that money in a CD or something, right? So as a kid, how did you get there? It's fascinating.
Well, as a teenager, I read the book, and this was a book that was misguided for me and really put me in a situation that wasn't about building wealth. I read The Millionaire Next Door when it came out. And so that kind of was like how my family operated. They were coal miners, and it was all about, saving and budgeting and eliminating expenses, and wasn't really about how do I make more money or how do I make my money work for me. It was more about how do I hold on to it. And then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it was like, oh, assets creating cash flow. Like that's what I took from that book, and was like, okay, assets creating cash flow. And when I was 18 years old, before I read that book, I had bought a variable universal life policy that I was putting $70 a month in, and they showed me it was going to earn 18% a year because it was the 90s when the stock market was doing well. And I took an econometrics class and ran an analysis, and I was like, with all these Monte Carlo simulations looking at different variances and times of the market, 97.8% of the time this plan was not going to make it 40 years. They said I was going to be a multimillionaire. It was going to have $0 because the insurance expenses and the volatility of the market were going to eat away at what was possible. And so I was like, well, this sucks. And that's what led me to reading other books, interviewing more people. And I was talking to this girl that I knew and was friends with, and she's like, Jenny's dad is in the world of finance. So I drove 3.5 hours, met with him. He's like, I'll give you an internship. And then this internship will pay you $2,000 a month. And I was like, cool. And so I took that money and used it to fly somewhere every month. And the very first place I went was Phoenix. And I met this woman, Kim Butler. Actually, I'm going to talk to her later today. And she was advising Robert Kiyosaki at the time. So I was fascinated because I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I'm like, oh, tell me more. And then I realized there was so much I didn't know after losing money with my first investment at $70 a month. And, seeing what was going on in the year 2000 when the market started to dip. And all of a sudden, it wasn't a 10-year extraordinary bull run that was unprecedented, that mostly came from people just automatically putting money into retirement plans that weren't doing it before. And I was like, oh, man, this is like, I've got to figure this out, because if I'm going to advise other people, because my internship was in the world of finance, I'm like, I don't want to go through what I went through and what I was kind of teaching the first 2 years. And so I just took the money that I made and reinvested it every single month and flew somewhere. And what's cool is when you're young, a lot of people will talk to you that normally wouldn't set up a meeting. They liked it. I had a red memo pad I would flip open, and I'd ask all these questions. And I'd go to people like actuaries that were designing the insurance plans. I was going to product designers. I saw this family office where this guy, he was worth $20 million and only had 5% of his assets in the stock market, yet he made his money by being an executive on Wall Street. And it was like, okay, what the hell is this? And I was just ferocious and passionate and curious. And I had this philosophy of I don't want to just make money by giving advice. I want to make money because I become a great investor. And that was kind of not only was I going somewhere once a month, but I was making a lot of investments, even though they might've been small amounts of money. They were big to me at the time. I did an oil and gas investment. I was just writing about my mistakes with that this morning. I did 2 IPOs. I started a hard money lending fund. I was just doing so many things. And if you do too much, then you're not good at any of it, and if one thing doesn't work, then everything else starts to suffer as you go chase to fix that and you don't pay attention. So it was a lot of lessons from learning from people. And an early mentor was actually a professor at my school that, before he became a professor, managed $5 billion in municipal bond funds. He gave our class $250,000 to invest, and we got graded based upon how we did against the benchmark. And that's when I realized I'm not going to be a fund manager. Like, I'm going to be an efficiency expert. I'm going to be a cash flow guy. I'm going to help people understand frameworks and models and structures and do due diligence. And so all that was so instrumental in like figuring out, when it really came down to it, people needed to understand the concept of money, their mindset around money, and have models that actually created cash flow instead of deferred everything until retirement.
Yeah, well, let's start with that then, the mindset, right?
Yeah.
The abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset. And I've heard that, I've heard you talk, and you've started at the scarcity mindset, and you changed over time. So can you talk about that part of it? Like, why is it so important to have the abundance mindset? What does it mean? And if you are in the scarcity place, how do you get the courage to change?
Yeah, scarcity is the greatest destroyer of wealth. It's, and people will quote that economics is the study of scarce resources. And yes, there are resources that are finite here on the planet, but there's innovation, there's ingenuity. And, I was listening to Peter Diamandis the other day talk about mining off of asteroids and how many resources are on there. Like, all of a sudden you think, oh, wait, when we think about that, everything starts to open up. We think maybe there's only a certain amount of fuel, but then we find out, if you have a certain process, you can get it out of the Rocky Mountains. It's like, oh, the innovation starts to lead to new things. And Thomas Malthus was, hundreds of years ago, basically this philosopher and economist that said we were going to run out of food. And by now, with the population we have, we shouldn't be around, according to his philosophy. But, it's kind of like, he was also talking about, if you kill a buffalo, that buffalo's gone. I'm like, has he never heard of reproduction? Like, yes, you can overdo it, but we can grow things. We can learn new ways to do it. We can become more efficient. And so it's really just the perspective we have. If our perspective is everything is scarce, we hold on to what we have. We cut back, we scrimp, we sacrifice, we delay, we defer. We're reactionary. We're afraid. That worry consumes our thought process. It robs us of our joy, and it destroys our energy and our ability to produce value. But if we start looking at innovation and ingenuity, or that value creation is the catalyst, instead of what we can hold on to, and that exchange with one another is actually what creates more wealth. And we're so much wealthier now than we were even 100 years ago, where 50+% of the population was worried about getting enough calories. Now it's like 9%. So we've completely transformed things because we build upon ideas, and because other people's genius can improve our lives. And yet people like to point out what's wrong, because that's what scarcity does. Scarcity likes to, be fearful of the future and talk about the mistakes of the past, where abundance learns from the mistakes of the past and creates in the present. And so even, again, if there's a finite amount of resources, even if there's a finite amount of money, there's an unlimited number of times it can exchange hands. And every time it exchanges, where there's not coercion or deception, that's through value creation. And that value creation builds wealth in abundant ways. So how do we have a perspective of serving others, solving problems, and adding value versus holding on, scrimping, saving, and sacrificing? It really comes down to that.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And then, I want to get into also the cash flow, because that was a big thing that we are interested in at Left Field Investors. And we've talked about this. I'm a cash flow investor, and the mindset that I started with is I don't have a W-2. I have to invest for cash flow. So the mindset that a lot of W-2 employees have is I have an income stream, so I want to invest for accumulation or appreciation. So can you talk about the cash flow model, the accumulation model, and just why cash flow, in your opinion, is better?
Well, the accumulation model, I don't even use the word accumulation when I discuss wealth, because it is so geared towards this mindset of three things. It takes money to make money. Well, when we think it takes money to make money, we stop thinking about relationships and ideas. It starts to decimate value and exchange. Like, dollars follow value. So if you want more money, it's about creating more value. But if we think it's only about it takes money to make money, people without money feel defeated and don't take action. Number two, high risk equals high return is the notion of accumulation. Hey, the more risk you're willing to take in these funds, the more return you're going to get long term. But risk equals chances of losing. So if we increase our chance of losing and we lose along the way, it actually harms our energy, our mindset, and our pockets. And then the third thing is this notion of you're in it for the long haul. If we're trying to invest for 30 years from today, we have no clue what's going to happen between now and 30 years. And accumulation at the neglect and expense of cash flow puts people at risk. It has no accountability. And ultimately, people 95% of the time are disappointed. 95% of the time, if people accumulate for 30 years, they're not financially independent. That's a 30-year plan that doesn't work 95% of the time. And that's not my stats. That's the U.S. Department of Labor saying at age 65, 95% of Americans are not financially independent. They're reliant upon government programs. Like, this is part of the issue. And the other concern I have with accumulation is it has people trade time for money, do things that they hate so that one day they can finally do something they love when they're too damn old to do it. So it's a crazy notion. It destroys and robs people's value in their lives. And we get the worst of people when they're doing accumulation versus the best when they're doing utilization and acceleration and value creation models that focus on cash flow. Because here's the thing. If someone's financially independent, where they have assets that create enough cash flow to cover their expenses, they can swing for the fences in what they do. They can dedicate their life more to their vision than to survival. They could be more creative, knowing that it won't rob them of the food that they're normally used to eating, the lifestyle they're used to having, the house that they're currently living in, and ultimately the education they might want to provide for themselves and their kids. And yet when people are taking part of their money and treating it like an expense to put in a retirement plan, they don't have to earn more to live the lifestyle, and they have to wait for 30 years to see if this works out. So I obviously am passionate about acceleration versus accumulation and velocity instead of compound interest. And I know a lot of people love this compound interest term, but compound interest doesn't work well in 5 years. It takes 30 years for that exponential curve to happen. And we have all this risk of losses along the way can create opportunity cost that really destroy that compound interest curve, especially if people haven't got their liquidity or they're not focused on cash flow. They're one financial surprise away from having to confiscate the wealth that they were building in the accumulation model and lose time value of money. I mean, obviously I could go on for hours and hours about this because I just deeply think about it, study it, and I'm actually rewriting my first book, Killing Sacred Cows, which is about this concept more than anything. It's about the problems with accumulation, how it's rooted in myths that actually harm our prosperity, and how you can make better choices and be more successful once you identify them, avoid them, and choose a different path.
I think the part of the challenge, right, is choosing that different path. Like hearing what you say, yes, the cash flow makes more sense. Talk about acceleration and velocity, and also if cash flow is a better approach, how do you build up that cash flow? How do you get started?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the way that most people try to do it and then the two alternatives. So the way that most people try to build up cash flow is that accumulation model, and they budget. They cut back expense, and then down the road, they build a nest egg that they try to allocate to some type of investment that creates cash flow, right? So maybe someone's in retirement, they put it in treasuries. For now, it's earning 5%. Years ago, it was earning 1%. But, maybe they put it in the market, they risk that volatility. There's two other ways. One is to, instead of living within your means by cutting back, you live within your means by plugging financial leaks. Don't tip the government. Don't overpay on interest. Don't overpay on non-performing fees and hidden commissions within investment portfolios, and restructure your insurances to be efficient to transfer catastrophic risk and stop insuring inconsequential things. That will put more money in your pocket. That more money in your pocket is cash flow. Now, somewhere between the first and the second step, and this is, if I'm talking to the general population, not the investors that are savvy that you're talking to, let's just say general population, because it helps us inform how we operate with family, friends, and the rest of the world. I just have them figure out their cash flow index for investing and for loans. So all you do is you take your loan balance and divide it by the monthly payment. It gives you a number. If that number is under 50, you have a cash hog on your hands. You have a really low balance with a really high payment. The banks love you. If you have over 100, it's a more efficient loan. You don't have that high of a payment for what you've borrowed. That's more efficient. When we look at investing, how much money have you allocated to the investment divided by the cash flow that comes in? Most people have a zero on that because they're putting money in a retirement plan that creates no cash flow along the way. But imagine if I could put $100,000 in something, and even if I could get $500 or $1,000 a month off of that's a, now all of a sudden I'm going, well, that's a decent cash flow index for our investments, because from an investing standpoint, I want a low index. For a loan standpoint, I want a high index. All it's doing is measuring our effectiveness of cash flow. And if someone's out there and they have a really low index on their loans and a really high index on their investments, they're better to create cash flow by paying off loans. Because A, they probably aren't going to put in the time. They don't have a high enough cost of money. Our cost of money is our highest sustainable rate of return that we can earn on our money. If someone doesn't know what to do, maybe their highest one is paying off their credit card, or maybe it's putting money in a municipal bond. Who knows? But the better you are as an investor, the better network you have, your cost of money goes up. Like in corporate finance, we might call that a hurdle rate, because you can earn more money and you're measuring that against borrowing. Like, I actually don't have to have a mortgage on my house, but it's 2.75% fixed for 30 years on a jumbo loan. I'm taking that money all day because I can arbitrage and make more than 2.75% all day long. Now, if it was 22%, I'm paying that thing off, because even though there's moments where I get really great returns, I'm looking at what my most sustainable, predictable returns are without having too much risk or volatility. So it really just comes down to what is our opportunities. Now, the third component is, how do you make more money, right? To create more cash flow, how do you create assets to create cash flow? That's the question. Is it through business? Is it through real estate? Is it through intellectual property? Like, what assets work for you? And there's a lot of different ways to invest in real estate. There's a lot of different types of businesses to buy, but it's a different philosophy to think, what if I'm a little bit active in setting up cash flow so I could be more passive long-term, right? Building the relationships, learning about what syndications are. It's more active up front, but it creates, I call that hard easy versus easy hard. It's easy to put money in a retirement plan, hard when it didn't get you where you wanted to go, and now all of a sudden you don't have time value of money and you're older and you're like, this sucks. Hard to go like, I got to learn what's out there, figure out what I can do, and think about ways to create cash flow. But easier is that's a recurring revenue that shows up every single month versus waiting for 30 years to have it.
Rust Belt Capital is an elite Ohio-based private equity firm with a specialization in long-term, high cash flow multifamily investments. If you're looking for long-term recurring income, you should check out Rust Belt Capital. From their approach to managing risk, to the locations they invest, the product quality they provide, this firm is serious about what they do, which is why the owners of Rust Belt Capital invest their money in every deal they take on. Review their case studies by visiting rustbeltcapital.com. That's rustbeltcapital.com. Once again, rustbeltcapital.com, or email investor@rustbeltcapital.com.
Investing in syndications can be a daunting task. Wiring a large sum of your hard-earned money to someone you talk to on the phone for 30 minutes can certainly be scary. How can you be confident in what you're doing? Steve Sue, one of the founders of LFI, just published a book called Avoiding Rookie Errors as a Left Field Investor. 20 lessons learned from 14 years of investing in private syndications. This is by far the best book I've read on syndication investing. It's an easy-to-read book, chock full of great advice from Steve's experience as a passive investor. It is a must-read. Whether you're a first-time passive investor or a veteran, go to www.leftfieldinvestors.com/books and click on the link to Avoiding Rookie Errors as a Left Field Investor. If you are a passive investor, you got to read this book. So you mentioned three different categories of where you recommend getting cash flow, right? You talked about real estate, businesses, and IP, intellectual property, correct? Mm-hmm. So can you talk about each one of those in a couple of ways? In our community, we're familiar with the real estate way, but I'd like to hear where you're thinking the opportunities are.
Yeah, I mean, in real estate, obviously there's everything from single family, duplex, fourplex, like commercials, there's wild times right now for commercial. You've got people that are doing Airbnb arbitrage where they're not even buying the property and they're just renting it and then Airbnb-ing. You've got other people that are partnering with landlords and doing Airbnb. There's so many options out there, from fractionalized ownership to syndication to there's just so much that's going on in real estate. The key is, I believe everybody has their own investor DNA. And when your investor DNA is your values, which is kind of your script for how to operate, your competencies is which you have ability towards and a proclivity to grow, and then your drivers, which is where you have interest. And so don't invest in every type of real estate. Learn what your investor DNA is so you can do better due diligence, so you can understand the process, so you could mitigate risk with your money. And, when it comes to businesses, I don't start up a tech business that doesn't cash flow for years. I'm in the world of how do we cash flow from day one with business? I've bought businesses, but I've also started businesses. And so people have a choice of what they do there. What you got to realize is 96% of businesses haven't even made more than $1 million of revenue in a year, 96%. Meaning you could actually acquire a business for about the same down payment you could acquire a residence in a lot of ways, right? So it's actually more affordable than people think. But if you don't have a skill set around the principles of business and how it works and understanding income statements and balance sheets and margins and, things like that, then maybe business isn't the right path for you. My path for the majority of my money is intellectual property. I have some real estate, but not the amount of real estate I had in the past. I consolidated it, got bigger properties that I can drive to, touch, and utilize and rent out, but also use myself. So I adopted a new philosophy over time there. But intellectual property, I've got 10 books. I'm rewriting 2 of the 10 right now to re-release and update. I love the writing process. I've licensed content to other financial people. I write keynotes and those are things that I go out and present. Those are investments for me, especially if someone else can utilize it when I'm not there, right? Like doing consulting, I kind of have to be there. It's not really an investment, but having books that have been out for 15 years that still send me a check every quarter, that's pretty nice. And that's kind of my process. And then I go, how do I take that B2B so I can leverage it and scale it up in a way that more people can benefit from it with everything that I write? So, we could go through however much detail you want in those categories, but that's just kind of a quick shotgun approach.
Yeah, I'm curious about the passive type investments as well, because I think it's interesting how you talked about you're writing books. That is very active until it becomes very passive, right? And that's similar to how we look at like a real estate syndication. It's very active in the analysis, and then you wire your money and you're done. There's nothing else you can do, and so it becomes passive. So in that mode, like where could a typical W-2 employee or a typical investor find more of these passive opportunities that, maybe you have to do a little bit of work up front, but after that, it's just cash flow coming in?
Yeah, pick one lane of where you want to learn. And actually, rather than investing in a retirement plan, take and put your money in yourself and learn the knowledge of how to do that investment and whether or not that's the right type of investing for you, right? Whether it's, again, could it be that you learn all about what syndications are and you allocate your money to syndications, but you could do a decent amount of due diligence to understand what they're doing because that's where you invested? Or could it be that you partner and buy apartments, outright with someone? Or is it that you could just, Airbnb a single family? Like, it's about picking a lane and then really kind of investigating that. But what's nice is, I was working full time when I started doing real estate. I taught this guy back in 2005, like, hey, why don't you think about passive income? He was an engineer making 75 grand a year, had a bunch of money in his 401k, for him, a bunch, at a young age. Like he was 30, had like a couple $100,000, but nothing else really to show other than a major budget. He decided, I'm going to take 20 hours a week and start investing in single family residences and duplexes and rent them out. And within 362 days, he completely replaced his income as an engineer, quit the job, and then created a process to help other people do the same, and then was making 7 figures instead of not even 6. And now has more time with his family than having a W-2 job. So you start with something that's going to create cash flow, but it's really about, in this world, everybody's indoctrinated. We're starting to break free of that. We have to go get an education, and the higher your education, if you're a PhD or an MD or DDS or something like that, that you're going to make more money. Well, that's not true anymore. The thing is, if someone wants to be a dentist, they might be able to make good money, but they're at a disadvantage of at least $250,000 student loan and the 8 years that I was out there being an entrepreneur and learning the lessons in the marketplace. And then they have to learn how to be a business owner after all that's said and done. And we have the time to do it. It's just that our education isn't in classrooms anymore. It's in the marketplace. It's in being an investor instead of being someone who the ChatGPT could beat in a second because you're just regurgitating whatever you learned in school versus actually learning, actually having knowledge. And here's the thing with investing. I believe in passive investing, but I don't believe it's a passive path to get there. Because if we skip the steps of understanding, money will pass us by. You want to increase your human life value. You want to increase your skill sets. You want to increase your investor DNA knowledge base so that when you invest, you become a better investor. And the reason why far too many people are not good at creating passive income is because they're lazy. They're lazy, I'm sorry to say it, because they say that they don't have the time, but they just watched their 3rd Netflix TV series this month. They just spent 20 hours last week complaining about people in their family rather than doing something about it. It's because we're addicted to being escaped, because life sucks when you work in a job and a career that you hate. And instead of being jealous of wealthy people, learn from them. I learned at an early age. I just went and interviewed them. I asked them questions. People like talking about their story. I'm just as susceptible as well. People asking me about myself, and I'm like, you just start asking questions and stop talking. But I love it, right? So there's a path. It's just that you got to stop thinking that school's going to get you there. School it's not going to teach you to be a better investor. I got lucky that I had a professor that gave us actual cash, and we got to invest it. That was the class that taught me about money. The rest of them, give or take. Most of the classes weren't that useful other than corporate finance and his investment class.
That's great stuff. Great stuff. I want to pivot here quickly to the life insurance, because if you Google whole life insurance, you will be certain that it is either the worst thing ever or the best thing ever. Now, you analyzed a variable universal life product early on and realized the problems with that. Yep. So talk about how you use life insurance, why you use life insurance. Just give us a little bit of information about that, if you would.
Look, I'm going to be in a documentary coming up. It's very similar to my book, What Would the Rockefellers Do? I mean, when you look at wealthy families that pass on money for generations, they do it with two very critical pieces and a few peripheral pieces. Number one, all of them got really wealthy because they started a business. Whether they're full-time real estate investors and that's their business, or whether they bought a business or started a business. From that, they do two things. They set up trusts, and they use insurance to perpetuate wealth. The trusts are the instruction manuals and the ways to pass that on in the most tax efficient way. And the insurance is what replenishes the trust because of economic changes like inflation and tax hikes and all that kind of stuff. So insurance is, from a cash standpoint, I'm only about properly structured whole life insurance. If you're going to do indexed universal life, you're basically saying, I don't know if the market's going to be good. I'll throw it over here and hope, well, just do the market. Why are you limiting your upside if you believe in the market? Like, why would you go put money in something that's buying options that are limited to the competitive nature of options and is going to underperform? I've studied it heavily. It's going to underperform, I promise you. So I'm not looking for an internal rate of return with whole life. I'm looking for stability and a place to store my cash, protected from liability and bankruptcy, and accessible along the way. So if I have the right opportunity, I can use the cash to capitalize on the opportunity. Even if I go back and refinance it, I can get to that money in 72 hours, right? And so I can move. I bought 2 real estate pieces with my cash value in the last few years that I would have not got it. I got one in 10 days and I closed the other one in 5 days. There was 2 other bidders on the one, and the other one we bought before it even went to market. And as soon as people found out, they were pissed because there was a lot of people that were in line to get that, but I just paid full price and I brought the cash in quick, so I had the negotiating power. So the life insurance is a place to be your medium storage unit for your money, and the death benefit becomes something you unlocks assets in the future, like where you can do charitable trusts that could avoid tax altogether, and then have the death benefit replace the charitable trust, which is a bigger strategy and something to talk about. But when my book, What Would the Rockefellers Do, gets updated and expanded, I'm just waiting on the copy edit. It'll come out, Q2 of 2024. I mean, the legacy stuff in there and the details I go into, and the illustrations I'm showing, you'll be clear whether whole life insurance is for you or not. I think it's a great tool for most people, but if you don't understand it, it's not that useful. If you do, I've bought real estate, businesses, launched books. I've used my cash for those kind of things, and then I've just let it sit there in times where I'm busy doing other things, knowing that it's done better than my savings accounts, whatever, my CDs or my municipal bonds, because all those things have too much capital depreciation risk. If it's a bond, I have no capital depreciation risk as this little fixed income asset allocation that I call life insurance.
Yeah, that's a great overview of it. And the book, What Would Rockefellers Do? I've read that book. That I look forward to the update because the original was great. And again, I want to ask the one question that doesn't really have anything to do with what we've talked about so far is you're a stand-up comedian and you do comedy about money. Can you how did you come up with that? And I mean, it's awesome, but what do you make fun of money, or what do you do in the comedy, I guess is my question.
So I make fun of retirement plans and the accumulation mindset. I make fun of taxes. I make fun of crypto bros. I make fun of Wall Street. I make fun of dumb financial ideas. I make fun of people being, so cheap, but saying they're frugal. I make fun of when we think money can solve problems it's not meant to solve. I make fun of the dumb things we do for money. I make fun of the dumb things that we do with money. So, it really gives people a way that if they can laugh, they'll remember 3 times more. And if they're having a good time, I think entertainment's the gateway to transformation. And I've made somewhat of an impact over my years, but I feel like I can make a bigger impact using humor to reach people that never, ever would have considered some of these things beforehand. And I have way more fun doing comedy than about anything else. So, but I figured we didn't need another 45-year-old white comedian. So, and I want to be the funniest guy. And the only way to be the funniest guy for me was to be the money guy, because there's no one funnier in the money world than me. Like I put the challenge out there if we could find someone, you know what I'm saying?
That's awesome. Is there some place people can go to watch some of the shows, or is it on YouTube or somewhere on the internet?
Just started posting Garrett B. Gunderson, B as in boy, Garrett B. Gunderson on Instagram. Or if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is garrett.live in an internet browser, or youtube.com/Garrett Gunderson TV. Subscribe to that channel. We're posting a couple comedy clips now. My comedy special should come out this year. I've got a good distributor behind it. It's called the American Ream. And I put a lot of heart into it, and it was an amazing, epic night. The night that we filmed it, got a lot of laughs. I think that people, comedy's not for, like, everyone's got their different flavor of what they want for comedy. It's very subjective, so you won't hurt my feelings if you don't like it. But if you do, it'll probably be one of the best, best ways to learn a few major insights about money that should stick with you.
Yeah, that's great. We'll definitely check that out. And the final question I always ask is, what's a great podcast that you listen to? It could be, anything, real estate, comedy, mindset, whatever. And you give us a couple if you want, if you're a big listener.
Yeah. So this is honestly the ones I listen to most. The rewatchables. I love the rewatchables. It's Bill Simmons and crew. They take a movie once a week and they're like, why is this movie so rewatchable? And so it's like, cool. Like, I listen to that, then I watch the movie, and it's kind of fun. Daniel Tosh just came out with one called Tosh So. It's awesome. Love that. And then obviously I listen to Rogan, because how can you not? I mean, he just has fascinating topics, and he's one of the most powerful people in the world, and does it in a very curious, entertaining way. Like you almost feel like you know him. So those would be my top 3. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts in the financial space because I'm writing so much, and I don't want to take someone else's content or be overly influenced by someone else and what they're thinking. And usually if I'm listening to a podcast, it's something someone says to me about something I disagree with, and that I'm listening so I can understand the juxtaposition of what's going on. So people will send me clips from, like, Dave Ramsey's or Susie Ormond's, or, and those people are probably good for the W-2 person that never wants to learn passive income, but they're pretty horrible for everybody else.
Yeah, I agree with that. And lastly, if listeners want to learn more about you, get in touch with you, I know you mentioned a couple of ways, but if there's anything else you'd like to share with us, that'd be great.
Yeah, GarrettGunderson.com. I recommend buying my books from that page, because look, you'll get more than you'll get from Amazon. I'll just say it that way. We've got some things that we're doing that I think are kind of exciting, and you'll get the updated books that are coming out really soon. What Would the Rockefellers Do? Updates coming out. Killing Sacred Cows 2.0. I worked on that for hours this morning. We're getting close on that and getting to a copy editor. So, and my blog, if you go to garrettgunderson.com/musings, like, I write every week. So if you like what you're hearing and you want to read more about it, it's pretty raw and open. It's beyond just money. It's really about quality of life and living wealthy, and you're living your richest life along the way. And finally, you can take a money persona quiz if you want to know what your money persona is, especially your spouses or anyone that works for you, when you go to the quiz page on my website. So those are a few different ways to engage and connect. And yeah, thanks for having me on, Jim, and for all the viewers for watching or listening.
Great. Well, thank you for being on the show. We appreciate you.
Take care.
Visor provides investors with a secure platform that displays a comprehensive view of all of their holdings on a single, holistic dashboard. From real estate syndications to private equity, crypto to traditional investments, with AI-driven, unbiased, honest insights to maximize return, Visor is your one place to rule them all. Automating performance tracking, projecting future cash flow, analyzing all your financial documents, and much more in one powerful solution, making it easy to follow the money. Sign up for a free 30-day trial now at Visor.co. Have a deal in mind and a group of investors ready to go? Use TribeVest to pool your capital together through a multi-member LLC. TribeVest has streamlined the group investment process, making it easy, quick, and safe to do business with others. Start a tribe and invite your partners to join. Then you can use the platform to collaborate with your partners, pool capital, and manage your joint investments. I'm in 12 tribes myself. It is a great way to learn from others, spread risk, and get into deals at lower minimums. Go to tribevest.com to get started today. That was an interesting episode with Garrett. A lot of mindset stuff there, which I really like, and a lot of just thinking about how we approach investing and really other things in life. And it's just really unique. As a teenager, he made a little bit of money and then flew around interviewing wealthy people, and that's really probably what changed what his mindset would have otherwise been, right? He might have just been a Wall Street person like most of us start out, but he started out totally in a whole different space because of the people that he interviewed. And being young, as he said, people were more apt to talk to him and allow him to have those conversations. So he learned a lot when he was young and applied it later. And he talked about scarcity and abundance. And I really like those conversations because it seems intuitive that, scarcity is bad. And it is. It destroys wealth. As he said, it's really delay and defer money in enjoyment and the use of your capital and just save onto every little bit, where abundance, you can learn, and you can learn from your mistakes, and you can grow your wealth, and you can enjoy it along the way. And if you're not enjoying it along the way, then what are we doing? I think Wall Street at least teaches you to save until retirement and then hope that it works out. And as we know, hope is not a strategy. And then he talked a lot about accumulation versus cash flow. And accumulation, it reminds me of hurry up and wait. Hurry up, throw all that money in there, as I was talking about, and then wait until you're older to use it. And, it might make more sense to use it now. And that's what cash flow investing does. It just makes more and more sense to me. The more I talk about it. In the last couple episodes of this podcast, we've had some really powerful guests come on here and talk about cash flow and the importance of cash flow over accumulation or appreciation, because cash flow is the engine that makes it all go. And if you're getting assets that produce cash, they produce more than that. They produce freedom, they produce choice, they produce all of these things that you're looking for. And accumulation just doesn't do that. If you have a stack of money, then at some point you're going to have to convert that stack of money into cash you can use. And that's another challenge. If you've been doing it one way your whole life, and then you get to a certain point and you're like, okay, now I got to get cash flow. How do you do that? And then again, talking about passive investing, it is not passive up front. And that's whether you're writing a book or you're investing in a syndication. The passive part comes afterwards, after you've done all the due diligence, you've done all the work, you've written the book, you've analyzed the operator, you've vetted the deal, you've done all this stuff. That's active. And then once you send your wire, once you send the book to the publisher, or so many other examples, that's when it's passive. And the key is what passive investing does, or what writing a book and calling that passive is, it provides you with these income streams that protect you. It's cash flow. Not only does it help you in the current time, but it protects you in the future in case you lose one of your other cash flow streams, which often the largest income stream most people have is their W-2. Well, if you can have a few other income streams, then you're protected. You can make that W-2 optional, or if something bad happens at the W-2 and you lose it, you still have your cash flow to keep you company and to keep you going. So I really liked this episode, just learning from Garrett and hearing his story. I'm definitely going to check out his comedy routine because I like talking about money and I like laughing. So maybe I'll do a little bit of both. So that's all we have for this time. We'll catch you next time in the left field. Thanks for hanging out in the left field with us today. If you are interested in becoming a left fielder, you can find us on the World Wide Web at www.leftfieldinvestors.com. and click the subscribe button to join our community. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe to the show on your podcast player so you don't miss an episode. If you really enjoyed the show, a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts would be appreciated.
This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be considered financial advice. Before making any decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Passive Investing from Left Field and Left Field Investors. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.